right, here we go. We're back with another episode of Connectable. Deb is not here today. I don't know. She's doing some work thing, something. She's like, yeah, I got stuff to handle. I'm like, all right, whatever you say, Deb. I'm not gonna pry into her life too much. I'm just gonna trust her and assume that whatever she's got going on is important. So that's all right though. I get to be here with our guest today by myself, and selfishly, I get to ask all my questions and not be interrupted by our mermaid loving friends. So today we've got the founder of Baleka Wellness, Jon Parker. What's going on, man?
Nothing much. I'm happy to be here. Life is life, man. So it's always a pleasure to take a break.
Man, it's good to have you back on the podcast. If anybody has been listening to this show for a while, we had you on, I think roughly 2 years ago. I forgot exactly which episode number we had you on, but it was a fun conversation. And for me personally, it was cool to get connected with you initially because I remember, telling people back then, because we always start the show off by telling people how we're connected when they're on the show for the first
Mhm.
time. And back then it was because I had listened to you doing a podcast way back in the day. I think it was the Lions and Liars podcast and um,
Oh man,
a
yeah.
couple of others. And so the fact that I had you on my own podcast so many years later was a cool, roundabout full circle moment for me. So that's just a brief introduction of who you are and how you're connected to our podcast. But we had to have you back on, man, for a very specific reason because uh, back then it was the Baleka Run Club, and you shared all about that. But recently you changed it to the Baleka Wellness, and so I'm like, once I saw that, I'm like, I love what you were doing with the Run Club, but I wanted to hear everything that's going on with wellness now. So um, that being said, I'm going to stop talking and let you take over, man. So tell me a little bit, like what's going on with the change? Why did you change? All of that. Catch us up.
Yeah. So, the Baleka Run Club started because I was living in South Africa and I was hanging out in the Guguletu township. And I just was like, you know what? There's a fundraiser coming up to bring an innovation hub to the neighborhood. So basically have a connection for internet and free computers, just access to be able to access the internet. I don't digital divide is the thing, right? So I was they were raising funds to build this new center in that township. And so there was a two oceans marathon that's there in South Africa every year in Cape Town. And I said, well, you know what? I'm gonna do this fundraiser thing. Thankfully, it wasn't for speed. It was just more so people donated as I completed the race, so that was a good thing. But it was just the camaraderie of being in the township, practicing at the local outdoor facility, having all the kids and youth and young adults, and it went from 2 to 5 to 10 to 20 to 30 people just showing up for us to kind of like exercise and work out and hang out. And then that kind of expanded into now instead of just meeting at the track on Saturdays, now I got people at my house all weekend. We're going on hikes. We're backpacking. We're climbing over the top of Table Mountain, which is one of the I think it's the second set of seventh great wonders of the world, or however that works. It didn't make the top seven,
Yeah.
but it's like an 8 hour hike to go from one side over the top to the other side, type of thing. So we started doing stuff like that, and I just kind of realized having have to leave South Africa and come back to the States, I wanted to make sure that we did stuff that was meaningful, that kind of touched more points than just running, and kind of being outside and hiking. And so we were looking to expand, but our project manager moved from from Cape Town to Johannesburg. So that gave us an opportunity to try something new in Johannesburg. And it's kind of like going from like LA or the Bay to New York. So you go from like beach and mountains and all of that like hillside with all the different flora and fauna and all that stuff happening to into the city. And it's just not the same amount of space to do like trail running or hiking, or even, I mean, you can bike a little bit, but it's just hustle and bustle. Like people bike in New York at their own caution. It's not because they out trying to, sightsee. I mean, I guess you can, but it might be a little difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. So her moving to Johannesburg kind of gave us that opportunity to, think through things. And then we kind of made the transition. So I don't know if you wanted to jump in or if I should keep going, but I could be a chatterbox. So
No, that's good. I mean, that's people are tuning in because they want to hear you, but that's interesting. So because I was wondering why that transition was made. I wasn't sure if it was because of feedback you guys were receiving and people wanted it to go beyond just the running walking thing, or if there was something else that happened. But I guess I never even considered the fact that there was a shift in location, which caused you guys to basically have a shift in like direction too, which is interesting. I had no clue. So I'm glad you shared that, because I was thinking it was a completely different reason.
Yeah, no, we're kind of like I kind of look at Baleka Wellness as like the umbrella organization, the like the yeah, the just umbrella organization. And so the Baleka Run Club is primarily housed in Cape Town. That's where we started. That's where Two Oceans is the race, and then that's where there's a lot more space to do the trail running, the hiking, the outdoor activities that are related to nature exploration. And so part of me was like, we started off as a run club, we branded that way, we did a lot of things, and I would hate to have to shut that down completely. And I also wanted to not pigeonhole ourselves, because we had traction, but we didn't have a whole lot of traction to where, like, if Nike was like, you know what, we're going to be Cortez only starting next week, and then it's like, oh, what is this Cortez company? I don't know what's going on. That was me choosing a random Nike
Sure.
shoe that was from my era. uh
Sure.
old I am. But just this idea of like, okay, if we're shifting from Baleka Run Club, marketing, advertising, just people knowing us, and then the people in the community knowing us, although the name Baleka would still exist, going to Baleka Wellness might just be like, what's going on? And so then it was like, all right, well, how do we maneuver in a way where we can keep the run club functioning, not lose traction with the name, but then expand our brand and expand our services. And so it was when the project manager had to leave Cape Town full time to go to Johannesburg, I was like, okay, well, now let's just think through how to make that happen. And so, yeah, we didn't want to quit cold turkey to run club. We didn't want to just leave the people stranded that we were building relationships with there, because they're like family. I was living there for like 2 years, and it was like, you my people. I helped me raise my kids. We exploring the world together. We're running marathons. So it was just one of those things where it would have been a disservice, I think, if we would have just cut that cold turkey without trying to figure out how to keep everything in existence.
Awesome. So between when you recorded with us last a couple years ago, how much did the Run Club grow from that point?
Yeah, so when I mean, it was pretty much a weekly gathering that was happening, to where, again, our project manager to me, she was there, and she was, we were providing transport to different locations if we needed to do the transportation thing. We were providing food and snacks. So it was kind of like, hey, if nothing else is going right for you during the week, come and hang out with us for Saturdays and Sundays, and we'll not only see some sites that you may have never seen before, because that was one of the things, South Africa was on lockdown until like 94 as far as apartheid. So there was a lot of places where people couldn't go. And so when I'm there, I'm taking these kids out, these young adults out, and they're like, hey, you're not even from here, and you're taking us to places we've never seen or would have imagined we would go. And so that became a push as well to like, all right, well, we have to not only keep doing this, but we have to expand and show more and go different places and go further out. And so that was kind of like, like, yeah, what we kind of had to do. And so uh once we established that, again, it was like on a weekly basis. Once Toomey had to move, uh right now, starting, I think maybe about, it was maybe March of this year, we have slowed down with the weekly gatherings for the run club in Cape Town, because we don't have a dedicated person there, and I don't have the funds now to staff somebody. So what we do now is like, we raise capital via t-shirt sales, stuff like that. Because we're for profit, we're not nonprofit yet, so we can't solicit donations like that. People could donate, but it's not going to get them a tax break and all that other stuff. So
Sure.
we've kind of moved like doing what do you call it, quarterly meetings there in Cape Town. As a matter of fact, I was last there in March, and then we had a big meeting where we came and ate. We had a good cookout. Then we kind of walked around a little bit and kind of saw some sites, but it was more of like, hey, just making sure y'all know we're still here. We still care about y'all. I'm still coming up when I can. But we'll do the quarterly events, and then that way Toomey can fly from Johannesburg to Cape Town and kind of still manage those things for 3 or 4 times a year. But I guess quarterly would be 4 times. So
Yeah.
4 times a year there. And then when she moved to Johannesburg, we started the Baleka Sports Days. And so we switched from only doing running and hiking, because, again, a different terrain, different atmosphere. We had to do something different. We decided to host sports days once a month for now, where we either put on a soccer tournament We did a netball tournament for girls during Women's Month in October. We've done a sports day where we just introduce kids to different sports that may not exist or may not be a thing. Like we didn't do baseball down there, but we did just other stuff that would kind of see if there was interest in doing these other type of sports that exist outside of soccer and netball there in South Africa. And then in December, we will do like a wrap up for the year because they're at summertime during Christmas. And so it's festive season. So we're going to have like a cookout for them, just a hangout day and just, just have people come out, get some good food and just hang out and continue to get to know each other.
That's awesome, man. And I wanted to go back to a little bit when you were talking about you didn't want to, quit the run club cold turkey. And then even when you guys kind of backed off a little bit as far as the weekly meetings, you wanted to make sure that the people that were affected by your program knew it's like, hey, we're not just leaving, we're still here. Because I feel like I remember, quite a few years ago, I was working for a nonprofit here in Sacramento, and we worked with an elementary school in Oak Park and a couple of different, inner city areas. And I remember my boss would always talk about how we have to make sure that we don't, because too many times these nonprofits will over promise and under deliver. And the negative impact that can have in communities like that are, so involved in these programs is massive. And sometimes these people don't realize the kind of, gap or the hole they leave when they do that. And so the fact that you guys were aware enough to say like, hey, this is a crucial thing that they know we're not just kind of up and leaving, I think is huge. So I appreciate that you guys did that for sure.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, so I'm doing this PhD now in the Department's Family, Youth, and Community Science. And there's a specific type of research called community-based participatory research. And so basically, before you even do anything, a nonprofit, after school program, whatever, you kind of talk to those that will be involved and who will be affected by this thing that you're trying to do. And then part of it, like you said, when the wrap up happens and that grant runs out or the funding source dries up, part of your transition plan is to make sure that the communities can still be served in the capacity or to some capacity that you were serving before you got there. And so in my mind, I was like, man, there's no way that I could know this professionally and not apply this to what I have going on. And again, we're self-funded, but I still wanted to make sure, I mean, even to the point where we have a group chat and we're always posting in the group chat like job opportunities, education opportunity. We're just doing stuff to stay active to let them know that we're still around and we care, but making sure that sorry, my daughter just walked in. Yes, baby,
Good.
I'm doing, I appreciate you. But I'm gonna get back to you in a second, okay? All right, thank you. Sorry about that.
Hey, it's not the first
We
time
love
it's
the
happened,
kids.
so you're good.
We good. I have on pants, so there won't be any embarrassing things happening besides the kids covered it. So we good. I try to get that at least covered on this.
We appreciate
But
that.
yeah, so it's all good. But just realizing like, hey, there's no way that I could be one of those, when helping hurts type of situations where we had good intentions, but what they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and so I don't, that's a really tough saying. I've never really analyzed that. That's really, anyway, I didn't want to have good intentions and not
Yeah.
follow up, you know what I mean? So we're just doing what we can to keep that community engaged until hopefully one day we'll have the funding. And thankfully, not thankfully, but our dollar is a little stronger. So having to pay somebody there to be able to do things wouldn't be as much of a burden. But again, we just got to get, to that point where we're financially stable and we'll be able to be in both places at once. And hopefully here in the States as well. We want to do it everywhere.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and that's I don't think we really talked about this last time, but I'm always interested in people in your position as leaders and the type of leadership that you exhibit. Like how much of a burden do you feel? Because it's one thing to be a leader in areas where you're directly at, right? Like if it was something that it was in your own neighborhood, there's a certain amount of burden, but you're doing it overseas, right? And so you're doing it in a completely different country. And so there's some different challenges that come with it, like you've already shared. Like, is that something that do you feel like you're just built for that role, or do you feel like are there days where you're just like, man, you feel the weight of it and it becomes just heavy? I'm always fascinated by people in your situation.
Well, one of the things that I'll say, yes, there are times where because I'm in charge of social media and I hate social media. Like nothing like I'm anti anything, but it's just the idea like social media is its own animal and it's grown from just like here's a picture to like algorithms and AI and this and that and blah 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 blah. And
Yeah.
because I got 3 kids, I'm doing this PhD program. My wife is at conferences all the time because she's a smart person, doing stuff all around, just doing stuff, engineering type stuff. And so I have to uh manage a lot of things. Now my cousin, he's the president, so he does a lot of things too, but it's again it's still a two-man operation, right?
Sure.
And so uh it's one of those things where if I'm not motivated internally and by external things, I can see where production slips. Like just with the Instagram, I'll be hitting boom 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 boom, post after post after post, and then it's a dry spell. And social media, if you're not doing something, it doesn't exist, right? We can be doing great stuff, but if you're not doing it for the gram, are you really doing it? And so I kind of get stuck in that mode of, all right, well, we're doing the stuff that we're supposed to be doing. I got a billion pictures and a billion videos and all this evidence of the stuff that we're doing there, but like I'm just not a social media person, and so it bothers me that I'm not willing to push past my own lack of desire sometimes for that end of it, because again, it doesn't affect what we do there, but it does affect like the ability to be seen. Again,
Right.
we're for profit, so you gotta unfortunately be worried about the capitalism piece of it, and raising funds or whatever, so we don't have to self-fund all the time. But I feel like I'm good with the challenge of, hey, we got these kids and these young adults that we need to serve. There are people that can benefit from the programming that we do. Literally, the last soccer tournament we did, the kids did their own parade, like like the Super Bowl parades in their city, and they were going around with their trophy, chanting, and kind of just excited to go around their neighborhood, bro, and show off the hardware. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, yo, like we got to keep doing that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you have like parents, texting like, "Oh, my kid is so sad. They thought they were going to win their first," and I'm like, well, there's still a level of competition. It's not participation trophies for us. First, second, third, and maybe some certificates for runner-ups. But it's still cool to know that like these kids were so passionate about coming to our event and coming to our soccer tournament that it hurt them to not win and to not take something home. And that just means, again, hey, we got more tournaments. We're going to have to keep doing it. And as your skill set gets better, hopefully you get something. But we're still going to be here for y'all and provide good meals and transportation and, the events and all that stuff.
That's awesome, man. I could talk about the competition piece of that forever, but I'm going to skip over it this time because there's other questions I want to ask you. But I love the fact that like you said, it means so much to them. They threw their own parade, or like you said, on
Yes,
the flip
yes.
side, they're that disappointed and can't wait till the next tournament. So I think that's amazing. So I wanted to ask you though. Obviously, I know what soccer is, but what is netball? Because I feel like you guys have posted a decent amount about netball. I've heard of it before. I have no idea what it is, but it seems like it's. I mean, I've seen the pictures. I see the amount of kids that are out playing netball. I mean, it seems like it's a pretty popular thing. So can you explain a little bit about that, and then why you guys decided to? Because I mean, maybe you're not completely focused on it, but it seems like you guys do a decent amount with that sport.
Yeah. Yeah. So with the netball situation, it's basketball without a backboard, right? So it's just the rim.
Okay.
And it's a little different with the dribbling. You don't get the dribble, pass, dribble. It's like you pass the ball, you take 2 steps, you gather, pass the ball, you gather. And it's kind of like, I won't say rugby, but it's almost like, imagine if the rugby toss, because well, no, you can keep running in rugby, right? You can run forever with rugby. So it's literally just like basketball without dribbling a whole bunch and having to pull up from wherever you pull up. You know what I mean? And generally you're trying to get inside a area that's as close to the goal as possible. You're not shooting threes or nothing like that. You're like passing, try not to let the ball get stolen till you get close enough to the rim. And I feel like they can't even block your shot. I think maybe they can stand up. I should know better, right? But I think there's not like Matumbo, like no. But it's just like there's once you get to a certain point, it's you or the rim. You know what I'm saying? And make or miss type of situation. And it's full court. It's a lot of action. And it's for whatever reasons. I don't know, because of the Dutch or because of the British influence that once was heavy in South Africa. That's a more of a European, British or Australian, a British or Dutch thing, but basketball didn't catch down there, at least in South Africa, in terms of like everyday sports that everybody plays. When I lived there, I was in a league. I was in a hoop league, a basketball league there. But it wasn't like they're now trying to get basketball to be a thing. I know in NBA Africa and all the stuff that they're doing, and of course
Sure.
Africa is a large continent. Of course, it's not one country, but the idea that South Africa, they still, I mean, they love rugby, they love football, the beautiful game, soccer, and then they love netball, and more so the youth. You don't see, I haven't seen any adult netball leagues, kind of like we have adult kickball leagues,
Sure.
but yeah, it's one of those sports, bro. It's fire down there, and as a matter of fact, it kind of looks like a volleyball. Actually, the way that the ball is made.
Sure.
When I'm looking for clip art, I'm like, well, volleyball, netball looks the same. I'll choose that
I'll
one.
use that.
Right. You're
Yeah.
picking the flyers and stuff, but yeah, it's very interesting. I don't think it'll ever hold and fill stadiums like basketball does.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a youth sport to keep youth engaged. It's definitely young adults do it, and children, of course.
Okay, so I want to. I had another question about netball, but I have to ask about you playing in a hoops league down there. Like, what was that
Yeah.
like? I mean, 'cause I don't know how tall you are, but like, is there like a big size difference? Are you smaller than those guys, bigger than those guys? What's the game like when you're playing in a league like that?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, so it's probably different where you are because I was in more of like an inner city league. So first of all, I have to say that South Africa is still dealing with the legacy of apartheid, and they have different areas in which when apartheid was going on and when it ended, that people kind of got relegated to where you live. So you have like colored neighborhoods, which are anybody that's mixed with black, white, Indian, Asian. Like there's the largest population of Indians in South Africa
Hmm,
outside of India. Like that's like who would have thought, right? Type of thing, right? So you have all these
sure.
cultures that mix, but depending on where you are, there's a lot of segregation that takes place. So I was in a colored township, quote unquote, and I was actually invited by another American who's was doing like missionary work. It wasn't like come save the savages, but he was on
Sure.
mission down there in South Africa,
Sure.
doing some work. And so it was us two Americans, everybody else was South African. And I mean, I'm 5'10", and so I wasn't towering over anybody. I was probably average height.
Okay.
But only time that we ever had issues is that when we play like them young boys that was like 18, 19, 20, and there's a couple almost 7-footers, 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", and right. And so
Yeah.
my team, the guys are like late 30s, 40s, and they smoking during halftime, like in the gym, like, bro, you smoking at the top of the bleachers doesn't help us not breathe in your smoke, but whatever. So that's what they're doing at halftime. And me and my boy are the most athletic. And so we're chasing down everybody. We're running, doing whatever. But when we ran into them young boys that was like almost 7-footers, and I don't feel like the rims are regulation because some of them guys are smashing way too easy. And if
Yeah.
it wasn't for this, side rupture back in the day, I might have been able to at least challenge some shots. But those days we were getting slaughtered because they was running up and down the court, blocking shots, dunking on us. And I was like, all right, well, today's not our day. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
There you go. Just chalk it up to that, man. That's yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure it's just a completely different experience playing down there. Um,
Yeah.
so the net,
Even
so the,
calls like randomly, like, oh, sorry, my bad. I got
no,
excited.
please go,
But
go ahead,
no, like
continue.
you certain moves, and I'm like, y'all stuck in the 90s, bro. Like, we not, this ain't our era. We can do different things now. And trying to explain like what's a carry, what's not a carry, what's traveling, what's not a travel. And they watch basketball, but like
Sure.
they still, it's like playing Euro League, like, hey, you can't take nothing off the rim type of stuff. And it's just like, but we're not, all right, what are we doing? Okay, let me know the rules before we start this game because I don't want to get too upset. And so that was always fun when we arguing over calls. That was the best part.
So let me ask you this: when you came back to the States, though, the next time you played in a game, what was that like? Because I imagine that must have been a very strange transition back.
Yeah. I mean it's the speed of the game, it's the length of the courts, depending on where you're playing. Of course the trash talking, that
Sure.
wasn't happening too much down there. But it's just more of a, yeah, I think it's just the speed of the pace, the athleticism of the players. You know what I mean? I used to tell people all the time, if I played hoop overseas in some random college, before pros, there's a lot of room for, if you go somewhere where they like basketball. If you have a D3 here could probably be D1 if there's an equivalent, you know what I'm saying,
Sure.
overseas in some countries and some places, right? Kind of like LaMelo. Like I think LaMelo went to go play in Turkey or whatever he did in
That sounds
between
right.
high
Yeah, I think it was
school and
Turkey.
yeah. You know what I mean? So not saying that he's not nice because clearly he's in the league, but like there's opportunities I think for regular guys to feel good about themselves. But then you come back to the States, you're like, oh yeah, okay. I'm a yeah, all right, I got next. And then nobody's picking you up because you're just a regular guy. So
Right.
now you're waiting 5 games. You're waiting 4 or 5 games to play when it was back to back in South Africa. Like, all right, you got me, cool, let's go.
That makes sense.
So
I could have
yeah.
used that, man. I got cut when I tried out for my high school basketball team. So man, I could have succeeded over there.
All right. Yeah.
And I wanted to say this too, because I don't think we've talked since you were kind enough to send us a couple of shirts when we had you on last. And still the yellow Baleka tank top, still one of my favorite running shirts. I use it all the time. So,
Okay. Okay.
oh
I like
yeah,
to hear that.
yeah, man. I love that shirt. Still use it. Still holds up. So, that brings me to my next point, because on my notes here, I've seen the Pace Yourself shirts that you're wearing right now, which I appreciate you wearing right now, because I'm going to talk about it. So, where does that come from, and what's kind of the purpose behind that saying?
Yeah, man. So it's one of those things where, and I got to send you some more stuff too, man. So I got, we'll get y'all sorted.
We'll always
But
take it. We always appreciate free stuff.
all right, appreciate that. So my as I may have mentioned last time, my master's is in mental health counseling, right?
Sure.
And so part of wanting to come up with a mantra that kind of fits our vibe. I was just kind of thinking through like, okay, like what is a statement that we can make for as long as we can until people get tired of it? That's like a just do it, that's just like a, just man, who else has one? Somebody's got another one, a tagline.
Yeah.
I can't think of
I'm
another.
blinking now too, but I know what you mean.
But that's how Nike's cornered the market. But all you think about is just do it, right? And so,
Sure.
have something along those lines. But I wanted it to have some kind of backing of like, so the whole tagline is like, find your pace, keep your pace, pace yourself. And it's spelled pace yourself. Period. Like self being not part of yourself, like the two separate words. Because the idea is like whatever it is you're doing, wherever you find yourself, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, whether you're a doctor, whether you're just a dad of 3 trying to stay active, whether you're avid outdoorsman, whatever it is that you're doing, the goal is to not keep up with anybody else. The goal is not to be like anybody else. The goal is not to run somebody else's pace. It's your pace to run. It's your pace to find. It's your pace to keep. And so the pace yourself just became something. I was like, okay, this makes sense. Couldn't trademark it. It's already trademarked, and the whole thing is like pace yourself. One word is a brand that exists, so it couldn't become a brand. So it was like, we'll just make it a tagline. Stay out of trouble, not get hit with any cease and desist type of situation, and then kind of hopefully we can catch traction with that being the inspiration that kind of pushes people to live life at their own pace, but to live it in such a way that they're happy, as well as catering to others if need be. If you're a father or a mother or whatever the case may be, you have other people you have to take care of, but you got to find your space, you got to find your pace, and you got to keep that thing.
That's interesting, especially, going back to what you were saying about social media, and, just trying to keep up on our own social media is challenging. But part of the reason that we do that is because on social media, you see what everybody else is doing, you see what other brands are doing, other people are doing. And so there's that part of us that wants to keep up with the trends, keep up with, everything that's going on in the market that we're in. But to your point, you also have to pace yourself. So how do you find the balance between pacing yourself, but also staying ambitious and trying to, get to that next level? Because I feel like a lot of people have a tough time finding that balance.
Yeah, and I mean that's the key to it. I mean honestly, a lot of my work, especially when I'm doing the counseling piece, is helping people understand that like there's you that's there for you, and then there's you that's there for others, right? And so um I have to be honest about where I am as far as like my family life, the responsibilities I have there, trying to do this PhD, trying to, run this business both here and abroad. And knowing that I still have to get at least 8 hours of sleep a night. I still need to drink enough water. I still have to myself get out in the wilderness. I still got to get out there and ride my bike. I still got to get out there and walk and just pay attention to my neighborhood and listen for the owls, because that's the stuff that keeps me grounded, and that's the stuff that keeps me from, just losing it, just not being in touch with things. And so, the thing is, like, yeah, there may be a point in like somebody's life, and that's where the pace yourself comes in. Is like sometimes you speed up, sometimes you slow down, sometimes you just do whatever you need to do. But the thing is, you still have to be mindful of what your body needs. So yeah, okay, you're 20 something, 30 something, don't have a lot of responsibilities. You can get 4 hours tonight because you'll make it up, next day, next day, next day, and maybe do that for a couple of days and then get some sleep or whatever. But me, I can't, bro. Like I get to bed at 11:30 and I'm wrecked for 2 days just because I got to get up early. The baby might be waking up in the middle of the night. You might have saw her head in here a couple of seconds ago. And so for me, it's like I have to remember there's only, so many hours in a day that I have to work, so many hours in a day I have to be with my family, and then so much time I have to keep for myself. And I've burnt the candle on two ends too many times to keep doing that. And so that's the idea again. And once you find your pace for that moment, it could be for a week, it could be for a day, it could be for a few months, it could be for the year, what you're going to be doing. But it's still, for me, it's key that I delegate when I can. It's key for me to trust my program manager to me in South Africa. Like, hey, here's the funds. You sent me the budget. This is what you're gonna do. Oh, wait a minute. Only 15 kids are supposed to come and 300 came. All right, well, let's figure that out. Like that literally happens all the time. You know what I mean? So, but not getting stressed out and not being like, I gotta be there, micromanage. Like, no, like that's his thing. My cousin with the president, he does his thing. We delegate duties, and it's really just a matter of really being honest and taking a real assessment of what I can do, what I can't do, and making sure I don't run myself into the ground, because I got to be here for life. I got, like I said, I got to be for kids. I have other responsibilities in my community, and it has to be a mantra, and it has to be a lifestyle. And I just remind myself daily, like, yo, like, pace yourself, my man.
I like what you said too about how, because I think sometimes when we hear that phrase, pace yourself, we're thinking you just find a consistent, neutral pace and you just kind of go through life at that pace. But really,
Yeah.
like you said, if you're running, pacing yourself doesn't mean that you're at one consistent pace the whole time. There's times where you have to kind of pick it up, kind of drop it back. And so I think that's an interesting way of looking at it, because I think it gives a little bit more, a better understanding of what that idea of pacing yourself really means. It's not, you don't coast. It's just, as you kind of go through different seasons of life, the pace you're running changes, but you always have to be aware of the pace you're going. So I like that a lot.
Yep. And you got to be.
Oh, please.
Go ahead. No, I was just reiterating, and you just got to be prepared. You know what I mean? Like hey, you know what you got to do. You got a carb load on the front end. Maybe you got to do. When
Right.
the whistle goes off, you can't shoot out there. You know what I mean? Like you gotta. It's all kind of strategies, and you're right. It encompasses all of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. The last episode we did, which I will actually be dropping tomorrow. And actually, I'm not even going to say that. That starts getting confusing when we're a week ahead. Just know the last episode we dropped, we were with a guy who just did his first ultra, or not his first. I keep saying that. He did his first 100-mile run, and we were talking about. I know I want no part of that, but we were talking about his musical choice and his playlist. He's like, it's weird because you're not just blasting high intensity music right off the bat, because it's like you have 100 miles to go. And so he's like, I'm listening to meditation music, and then towards the end, then you start ramping up the intensity. But very similar to what you're saying is, it's like you have to kind of understand where you're at and what you need in that moment. And if you do that, then you'll be able to pace yourself for a very long time, and probably go a lot further than you would if you just go, like you said, right out the gate, just go for it. So I think that's something that anybody, if any, whatever they're doing, any career, any life journey, I think that's good advice for sure, man.
Yeah.
I don't even think I asked you this, this seems like a silly thing not to ask you, but when you guys made the transition to Johannesburg, what was the response like, and how long did it take you to kind of gain some traction?
Bro, I mean, it's funny because I'm sure, well, I don't know about Europe, but like South American places I've been, and the African countries that I visited, and things that I've done in certain cities, it's a lot more. It's, how do I say, when people are doing good things, it seems as if they're welcome to do more, like as much as they need. And so what I'm saying is, like, when I try to do something here, you got to get permission slips. You got to get all of these things to keep everybody safe. You got to sign these NDAs. You know, you got to do all these things, and
Sure.
which are good things. You know,
Sure.
America's America, stuff happens and people sue people and all these type of things. But like when we got to Johannesburg, um, man, like I think after our second event, people started coming to us like, hey, do you need more space? Do you need a different location? Do you need to use our kitchens? Do you need to cook here? Like, what can we do to help this thing keep going? Because they saw the impact that we were having on the neighborhood, and they saw that the kids were excited about coming and participating. And again, because we first started just doing sports days where we were just doing drills, like, hey, come out, get a free meal. We may bus you depending on where we have to go. We're going to teach you soccer skills, basketball training, you know, all these different sports. And it was literally just sports training. And the kids were just geeked about like having somebody care enough about them to show them how to play this sport better, or even how to play the sport and provide them a good meal, you know?
Sure.
And then once we started doing the consistent tournaments, and I think you were asking me about netball. I think you were going to ask me about specifically why netball, but I think I might have missed that. So we can come back to that if you need
Sure.
to.
Sure.
But yeah, so it was a much easier transition, because even before Johannesburg, there's a little area called Kimberley. That's where our program director went before she went to Johannesburg full time, because she's from Kimberley. So she left Cape Town, went back home for a little bit, spent time with her people, and we were running programs there. And it was like a matchbox, man. As soon as you start doing stuff, as soon as you start getting out active with the kids, with the young adults, people just show up. And again, the issue consistently, we plan for 80 people, X amount of teams, whatever. The neighborhood hears about it. We try to keep the date to a minimum and start putting posters up as late as possible, because people just start coming. And it's like what do you call those lines at the amusement parks? You know, they just wrap around as far as people wanting to come and be a part.
Wow.
And we've even had problems with older teams registering for a soccer tournament, knowing that it was like under 15s, and then they win, and we're like, oh my gosh, like we should have checked birth certificates, because we found out later that the team that won was smashing on these 12-year-olds, and they're, you know, 16, 17, you know, type of thing.
Yeah.
But again, like, I can't be mad at you. But we just need to make provisions. But long story short, I think that coming there, being consistent, has opened doors to where people are like, hey, you can do it at our school, you can do it on these grounds, we'll help you with your food supply. You know, they're willing to work with us. And it's not because we're passing out Willy Wonka golden tickets and everybody's winning and getting rich or doing nothing like that. We're not providing anything monetarily. It's just that the camaraderie, the sportsmanship, the gamesmanship, and just seeing people come up and show up consistently, I think is what was an easy buy-in for those in the communities that we're working with. And I'm telling you, it's crazy, bro. You try to do something like that here, it's just a lot of red tape. And it's just, especially going to a school and like, hey, do you mind if, you know, the kids, or if we use your space or use your track or whatever, like people are like, no, come. And so we're excited. We're
Wow.
happy that that's happening.
Well, and this is maybe kind of a big question, especially because I've got a couple more questions for you, because I want to be respectful of your time. But so I don't know if I shared this last time, but my wife is a PE teacher, high school PE teacher. My co-host Deb, who you met last time, she's also a high school PE teacher. And it's interesting as you hear their stories about participation, right, and getting kids to participate and getting kids to actively engaged in this idea of physical fitness. And it's challenging here, and it just doesn't seem like there's too many kids that really want to engage and understand the benefit of that. Well, it seems very different when you guys go over there and these kids are just basically coming in like massive numbers to be a part of what you're doing. So I mean, is that a pretty obvious difference in the understanding of wellness and like the desire for wellness in their lives between here and there?
It's interesting. So I feel like we took an intentional turn for wellness, and it's outdoors. So like our mission statement is about like introducing youth and young adults to outdoor sports and recreation, like intentionally, right? Because hey, you're indoors, you're playing video games, you're doing all these different things, but you got to think about it. Where we are, there's still a digital divide, and there's still a divide of having like I have two PlayStation 4s and an Xbox in my house, right? Not because I bought them, but because my brother-in-law loves me and he's always into electronics. And so whenever he gets a new system, I'll get the hand-me-downs, right?
Sure.
Um, I didn't play not one video game in the 2 years that I lived in South Africa, bro. Not one. Like I had one game that I was playing on my iPad, but I stopped doing that. Like it just because there's when you're in spaces like that, you realize there's so much more than being indoors, right? And so with the to answer your question, it's like you don't have to pull teeth there. Just like in my generation, and maybe you're, I don't, I don't know our age gap, but like I
It's
was
30, 35.
outside.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. And I'm 43, right? So I was outside until the streetlights came on, risking getting in trouble. And the trouble wasn't talking to. It was gonna be some problems if I wasn't in by the time that streetlight came on. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like
Sure.
I was risking it all daily for the streetlights, like risk it all. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so we're in a space in the States where PE is not mandatory. So in some places, it's 1 or 2 days a week. Just different things are happening, and kids aren't. They're not being taught the value of outside. They're not learning the things that nature has for them. They're not engaging with it in a meaningful way. And so therefore, if this kid doesn't feel like they're going to the league in any prospective sport that they're playing, there's what is the interest, bro? I can win in the video game. I don't have to be out here taking this L every week in soccer, being the slowest guy, being this, being that, blah 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 blah. But when I'm over there, nobody they don't care. Like these kids aren't concerned about being, as you get higher and you rank up and you're trying to win, like you're concerned about certain things. But on the surface level, everybody's pulling up to the tournament for netball. Everybody's pulling up to the tournament for soccer. Everybody's pulling up for the sports days because they're like, yo, like I'm not at home. Like I don't have to wander around the township figuring out what I'm gonna do, try to stay out of trouble. It's an opportunity to learn a skill, get a good meal, be around people that care about you, build camaraderie amongst the people in your neighborhood, further that bond, and it's enjoyable. Play is enjoyable there. I think that's the longest the whatever I had soliloquy for answering your question, but I think play is respected, play is valued, play is understood, and whether or not they completely firsthand understand the benefits, mental health, physical health, you know what I'm saying, of play, they're more in tune, they're more engaged, they're not engaged with video games and the socials and all of that, and they want to engage in physical activity for real.
No, I think that's why we had you on the show, man, because I wanted that answer. So you never have to worry about giving a long answer on this podcast. Um, but no, that was great, man. It makes a lot of sense. And I think you have a very unique perspective because you've been, on both sides of it. You've seen both sides of it. And so it's very interesting, like you said, that you have no connection to the video games, technology. Like you said, the digital divide is greater, which is interesting because a lot of times I'm sure you've been in conversations like this before where, and because you're not really a social media guy, people are like, well, it'd probably be, so much different if we didn't have social media. It'd probably be so much better. And you have people that taking these long breaks from social media. In your situation, you were in a place where, I mean, you could have hopped on social media, but like everybody else around that community wasn't really engaging. So it kind of in a way forced you to engage with the rest of the community. And it seems like there was a massive benefit in that. So um, it's tricky. And obviously with what you do too, social media is a big thing because it's, all the way across the world. So having social media is a massive benefit, but, for, again, going back to our own mindset, our own, mental health, it's also has this pretty negative side too. So it's cool that you spent a couple of years in a place where that wasn't really present.
Yeah, I'm literally to the point where like I came back right before pandemic. So it was like 2019 November. And I actually had a little bout of what they call a seasonal affective disorder. It's
Okay.
like a depression, and it's usually brought on by changing of weather, like going from summer to fall to winter,
Hmm.
and to the point where some people have to put in certain light bulbs in their home to give them more vitamin D and give them more light, because you can get depressed. And so I was coming out of festive season because we were ramping up for Christmas, and that's when it's warm. It's a warm Christmas. Everybody's out on the hot side and partying. To coming to winter, it was the end of the election season, so Trump was on his way out, and it was a lot of turmoil that was just happening in the states. It was just a lot of stuff happening that I was disconnected from for 2 years, bro, and just coming back, like even on the plane over, I opened up Twitter like a dummy and I was like, oh my God, like this is what I'm coming back to. And it was just a bunch of mess. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it took me from November to February to get out of that. I lost 30 pounds, which I still haven't put back on. I wouldn't get out of the bed. The kids was, I was like, man, y'all can do whatever you want. Cheerios for dinner, whatever. I don't care. Like I was just real depressed, you know? And so, but the thought of spring coming and then actually find out Georgia actually offered a lot of the stuff that I didn't know about before I left, because I wasn't into that stuff before I left. I wasn't into trail running and hiking and biking. And Atlanta, Georgia is full of that stuff, man. And so once I got out there, it was like, oh my God, I'm not in South Africa, but I can still get the joy, you know what I'm saying, from being in nature, being outside. And so forgot where I was going with that, but it's just one of those things where I was, once I got back, I had to, you know, I probably could have, if I had known what Georgia had to offer me before I got back, I probably would have been in a better space. But like just coming back to the drama, coming on Twitter on the plane, connected to the Wi-Fi, like ruining, I should have just waited a couple more hours and just, you know what I mean? But just getting right back to it. I didn't listen to American music. I didn't listen to no American artist while I was out there except for Kendrick. And like I just was like totally immersed. You know, I started listening to South African house music. I was, you know, Afro beats, you know, just all these different things, like because I just didn't want to be bothered with the West at the time. And as soon as I got plugged back in, it just killed my mojo, man. It killed my vibe.
Man, that's wild. Yeah, I can't imagine what that whole experience would be like, especially like you said, even something as simple as getting on Twitter and then all of a sudden it's just this flood of negativity that you weren't exposed to. Yeah, I can't even imagine what that would have been like. Not a fun season for sure. But
real character, right?
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way of looking at the glass half full, right? So yeah, before we get out of here, man, one last, I did want to go back to, so because I know we kind of touched on it a couple of times. So netball. So at what point did you decide that was the kind of the focal point of what you guys wanted to do over there?
Yeah, I did want to talk about that. So unfortunately, femicide, if you're not familiar with it, is a very, 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 very difficult problem in South Africa right now. I don't know what it is about the level of patriarchy that exists, and I'm not demeaning a culture or demeaning people, but patriarchy is patriarchy, and in certain places it's just a thing, right? And so, again, this is not to paint South Africa or anything in a bad light, but women's rights and the issues in which women have to face there or shoot, I almost say light years behind, or they're just in a different space. And so there isn't a lot of celebration of women. I should say, for my liking, coming from my Western perspective, there isn't enough celebration of women, young women, older women, in mainstream, because I feel like cultures, matriarchy is still a big deal in a lot of the cultures in South Africa. There's several tribes that exist still to this day: Xhosa, Zulu, Swati, Swana. I mean, there's a lot of cultures where mothers and grandmothers are important, but you'll be in a situation where a woman will go to the police station and say, hey, my husband's beating me, my husband's abusing me, and they're like, there's no such thing, like your husband can't abuse you. My husband raped me, there's no such thing, your husband can't rape you. And that's not saying all police are like that, but you might run into a police officer that's behind the desk that doesn't want to be bothered, and you're reporting this thing that has happened at the hands of your husband or some other male in your neighborhood, and they may or may not take it serious or may not take it to the effect that they need to, and bad things happen or whatever. And so for me, I wanted to make sure, especially this year during Women's Month, which is October in South Africa, that we did an event that was specifically for girls and a sport that they played and something that they enjoy, where they can win a trophy, get a good meal, hang out, feel loved, feel appreciated. And I think I posted it. We had a maybe 12 teams show up, if not more than that, somewhere around 12 teams. And so wow. I should know how many people are on the team, but I'm guessing 8 to 15 with reserves. Okay. So imagine, if you just leave it at 10 times, we have 120 young ladies coming, participating in this thing. And it was just like, it meant so much to them. We got a letter of appreciation from one of the clubs afterwards. Like, it was just one of those things where they was really happy and really appreciated. And we wanted to be intentional of doing that during Women's Month. And so once we saw the response, we was like, okay, well, this has to be one of our sports that get put in rotation. If not at least every month, every Women's Month, definitely during that time. but we can switch off from having, soccer tournament, netball tournament. We can put that in the rotation because it's good. And then also we just learned about the needs where, hope this isn't too much for the audience, but some of the young women were in need of sanitary napkins. And so now we're doing this period party here where we're raising money to flood the streets with reusable sanitary napkins for some of the women in some of the netball clubs down there. Or if they choose not to do that, we'll provide, we'll pay for traditional tampons or pads or whatever. Sorry, I just took a left if people get a little queasy with that.
You're good. You're good.
It was just one of those things where it's like, like there's a need. Not only do they want to physically participate in sport and be recognized, and we want to recognize them and give them some sort of, respect and honor and things that they may not get every day. At least they're going to get it when they're with us and when they're around us. But we also want to meet the physical needs. So that's why we always have a free meal when they're there, if not two, depending on how long of a day we're there. And then we also interview and survey coaches and participants, not just for B-roll for the camera, but just so we can, when we get to a place where we're having maybe, fundraising banquets or doing certain things or go to their website, you can see and hear the needs of the people and understand that it's bigger than netball. Like these girls, like they don't have basic necessities of being able to take care of themselves when that time of the month comes around, and so it just brought me to tears when I started hearing the voice notes that my program coordinator was sending me and hear their stories. And then seeing the pictures and seeing their faces light up, man, it just broke me down, man. It just brought me to tears. And so it's kind of, like, again, long story short, but like that netball, once we started doing it, we just saw that it was bigger than just netball.
Man, that's incredible. Yeah. And I'm glad you shared all that, because it's again, it's not like you just pick some random sport. Like there was a deeper, greater purpose behind it. And I think that's what, I don't know. I think that's what people need to know. It's, what I mean? I think that's the story behind it that people really need to hear. So I appreciate you sharing that, man. So all that being said, man, I feel like I could talk to you forever about all these things, but like I said, I want to be respectful of your time. How can people get involved? Where can they follow you? All those different things.
Yeah, so my personal, which is probably boring, but my personal like Instagram, all that good stuff is Seejonroar, SEEJONROAR. If that's easy to find, and I can get you to if you go into my link and stuff, you can see it's not even called link. What is it? Profile. You can see where I've linked to Baleka Wellness. So, and Baleka is BALEKA Wellness. That's the @ on Instagram. And drop us a line, drop us a DM. The email is info@BalekaRunClub.com. Like all this stuff is on the socials. And BalekaWellness.com is the website. BALEKA Wellness.com. And it just shows you the events we're doing, the stuff we've done. I need to put a calendar on there so we can have a way of like just letting people know when we're doing stuff. But man, we've all the help we need. If a social media person's out there want to get involved, please come through. Marketing person, whatever you want to do. We could work on commissions, we could work on t-shirt sales, whatever. But yeah, no, if anybody wants to help or has an idea on stuff, I'm wide open, man. Because like I said, we're self-funded and we're just trying to, not fill up the landfill with t-shirts if that's the thing. But I think people like to support a cause, and we're kind of just trying to make it do what it do.
There we go, man. Well, definitely go follow him, go follow everything that they're doing. It's incredible stuff. And like you said, like Jon said, if there's anybody out there that hears this and wants to get even more involved with the social media stuff, reach out to him for sure. So, hey man, as always, we appreciate your time, and thank you so much, and good luck with everything moving forward.
All right, Josh, let me know. I'll come back, man. I'll have shorter stories, but they'll be just as meaningful and deep. I'll just work on summarizing better.
Hey, man, trust me, your stories are perfect, and you can't tell a long enough story on here, man. We just, they want to hear from you anyway. They don't want to hear from me. They hear from me every week. So it was awesome, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I love it, and I love what y'all are doing. And you know what? I might be in the Bay come December. So if I'm there, what I'm saying, I hit your line, man, and in and out on me, if that's, what I'm saying.
Hey, there we go. Let's make it happen.
All right.
All right, man. Thanks for watching the show. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button to get a new episode every week. We'll see you next time on the Connectable podcast.